start again. It's a rich thing.
What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a Chicago Bulls weekly episode to discuss for you guys as we look at the previous week for the Chicago Bulls, as well as the upcoming remaining 2 games for the Chicago Bulls before we head into that All-Star weekend and the All-Star break in total, which is something that I desperately think the Chicago Bulls need. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the current Chicago Bulls situation. Let me know in the comments below as well how do you think this week went overall, and also your thoughts heading into the All-Star break about this team in total. We had 5 games to look forward to this week, ladies and gentlemen, and we went 3-2. We obviously lost the 2 of the toughest games of the week against really good opposition in both Philadelphia and Phoenix, and of course the remaining 3 games of our week we ended up winning fairly comfortably, some of them, and some of them were a bit close, too close in my opinion, for comfort. So first things first, let's just look at all these scores for these games. We're going to start with the Philadelphia 76ers game where we lost 119-108. This is the game where DeMar DeRozan simply throve for the Chicago Bulls, dropped 45 points I believe, and of course we didn't have an answer to Joel Embiid, who dropped 40. All the way through, this game was a little bit of a close competitive bout, very similar to obviously the first time that we versed Philadelphia, and even the second time as well, you could consider that as well. But Philly did get the end, I guess in the end, got the better of us once again. 3 times we versed Philadelphia and 3 straight losses. So many people can understand the frustration of what it's going to be like if we verse Philly potentially in a playoff series. Those 3 wins will give them a lot of confidence. But in this point in time, that's something that we can't really worry about at the moment. Let's just continue to focus on trying to get as high of a seed as possible, because I do believe we're still ahead of Philadelphia in terms of the Eastern Conference, and we need to try and keep it that way at the moment for the Chicago Bulls. Then we've got the next game back-to-back against the Phoenix Suns where, look, the score was really flattering for the Chicago Bulls because we did end up getting embarrassed in this game. We lost this game 127-124. Malcolm Hill's eruption of 8 points within 2 minutes or whatever it was ended up making this a little bit too close. We actually had a chance as well, if the coaching staff made the right decisions towards the end, to maybe send this to overtime, and then we have a real conversation on our hands. And it goes to show that the lesson is Phoenix should not stop playing basketball when they think the game is dead and buried. But at the end of the day, they're not going to worry about that. They walked away with the win, and Phoenix rightfully and 100% deserved that win for their dominating display, in my opinion, against the Chicago Bulls. I think both teams were really unhealthy towards that game, so I hope the next time out both teams will be healthy. I want to see how we match up when both teams are at least somewhat healthy. Of course, Phoenix has their star players in obviously Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Jake Crowder as well, JaVale McGee, a bunch of their guards as well. They were decently healthy. There were some role players that they didn't have. And obviously the Chicago Bulls don't have Lonzo, Caruso, Derrick Jones Jr. for that game. So again, we were not healthy as well. We're missing our key guards. So whatever the case may be, I hope the next time that we play them, we're both healthy. So at least if we win or we lose against the Phoenix Suns the next time out, we have a sort of level and gauge of where we are compared to them heading into a playoff stretch for the Chicago Bulls. Then we go to the Charlotte Hornets, and we won this game 121-109, a very convincing win. It was a game full of offense. It was a great offensive display, and I think our defense was the real key factor here as well. Again, we've had a long stretch of games where we couldn't bring any sort of team to 110 points and below. We always tried to outscore another team instead of trying to stop another team. I felt like in this game we tried very hard to play great physical defense, and that's something that even Kobe White said after that press conference. I remember in his post-game interview he talked about the physicality and how that needs to be a standing point for the Chicago Bulls going forward, and that they need to play physical defense. Obviously there's been a few games far between where that's not been the case, but this can hopefully be the beginning of a little bit of more consistent ride on defense. And our offense, I think, is probably still up there with some of the best in the league, even until now. So I'm not too worried about our offensive end, but it's the defense that I think really has to be the thing to improve. And that is hopefully the game where we can see that. Then we obviously versed the Minnesota Timberwolves, and defense was definitely not the display in this game. It was an offensive firepower, offensive game for both teams. Probably the funnest game of the week, in my opinion, if you're a Chicago Bulls fan. And we won this game 134 to 122. Vucevic and DeRozan carried us to a victory like this. Zach LaVine and Javonte Green did get hurt in this game, so hopefully both of those guys are not out for a significant period of time. All I can say is let's wait and see on the situation. But again, this could be a great game and a great win that has come with consequences. Because if Zach LaVine is going to be out for the next 2 games, those 2 games are not guaranteed wins, especially against the Spurs, which we've lost to, and the New Look Sacramento Kings. Very hard games coming up, in my opinion, without Zach LaVine. And same with Javonte Green, who obviously landed very unfortunately on, I guess he kind of face planted in many ways onto the deck after a dunk, and I don't want to see him miss any time either. I really thought we missed him in the next game that we'll be talking about, but again, we walked away with the win. That's the most important thing out of that situation, and hopefully those 2 guys are not out for a significant period of time. Then we versed the Oklahoma City Thunder, ladies and gentlemen, and again, this is a game where we missed Zach LaVine and Javonte Green, but we saw a good return in Derrick Jones Jr. He didn't do much in the game overall, but it's good to see him back, and it looks like he's going to continue to play through that pain in his finger, and all I can ask for is that the Bulls know what they're doing, and Derrick Jones Jr. can continue to find his game shape for the Chicago Bulls. We won this game 106 to 101. Again, this was a game where we didn't have our offensive firepower firing on all cylinders. We relied on Vucevic, Io, and DeMar DeRozan pretty much. Kobe White as well had a good second half. No scoring from the bench whatsoever, and that was a big factor into why this game was so close. And I really thought after the first half of basketball, there was a very good chance we were losing that game. But the second half turned things around, and we walked away with a really important victory off of another back-to-back. So it's a very good moment it's very good for the Chicago Bulls at the moment. That's exactly what we want to see. Again, we missed Javonte Green's cutting ability. We missed Lonzo and Caruso in this game as well. Their defensive prowess on the guards and preventing 3-point shots. That was a big key in the game for the Thunder. All the way through, you could say all of these games we missed our guys, but we walked away with 3 wins in a row for the Chicago Bulls after 2 pretty bad losses against good opposition. Now let's look for the must improve of the week, where we look at, I guess, the worst player of this week, and we try to find those ways to kind of improve. And look, there have been a few games where we've had good performances. There have been a few games where we've had bad performances. There's been a few games where players barely played. Like, you know, for example, Tyler Cook hasn't played a lot this week, so I can't really give it to him. I think that's very unfair. Players like Tony Bradley has good games and bad games as well. Then you got players like Matt Thomas, who's barely played. So these are the type of guys that you're probably looking at for must improves, but you simply can't give it to them because they've not really played enough to really earn that type of award. But there is someone that I do believe deserves it, and it could be very harsh, but maybe it is something that I'm going off of. I'm going to give it to Troy Brown Jr. for this week. Now, I could give Troy Brown Jr. all the credit in the world for the things that he does in not relation to scoring and even facilitating, because I think in both of those stretches, he's had up and down moments this season. But Troy Brown Jr., in my opinion, this week has not been great. He recently got his season high in rebounds and his first double-digit rebound game, I believe, in 2 years of basketball, which is incredible in my opinion, and that's a good way to impact the game when you're not scoring. But I feel like there's too many games at this point in time when it comes to Troy Brown Jr. where he's not been really effective as a good bench player. And I really need to see these things step up. Again, he's one of those guys that is kind of being in and out of the starting lineup because of the injuries that we have. He started in the last game against the OKC Thunder and he's got 0 points. There was a game, I believe it was against Phoenix or Philly, where he only had 3 points in the game. Troy Brown Jr., in my opinion, has a lot of potential. He's a very young player. He still has a long way to go in his NBA career, and he has to find consistency in his scoring. But this week was a very consistent week, in my opinion, but for the opposite reasons. It's because he wasn't really stepping up to the plate for the scoring and even at the facilitating for, I guess, the Chicago Bulls. His rebounding has been fine, and that's the best thing to take away from him this week. The 6th man of the week, It's very difficult, ladies and gentlemen, because my go-to guy for this award would be Kobe White. But Kobe White actually started some of these games. He started the game against the OKC Thunder, and I believe he started the game against the Charlotte Hornets. There were a few games where Kobe White struggled as well. I think I actually gave the must improve to Kobe White in the last Phoenix Suns game. So it's a bit of a difficult one, ladies and gentlemen, but where's the consistency in the bench for me not to give it to Kobe White? I'll give you a question then, ladies and gentlemen. I will give it to Kobe White because I can't think of anybody at the moment that really outplayed him on that bench. But if you guys really believe there was another bench player that outplayed Kobe White, if you think maybe Tony Bradley had some decent moments and outplayed Kobe White, again, if you think Troy Brown Jr. for the time that he played on the bench outplayed Kobe White, if you think that Tyler Cook, he barely played, Matt Thomas barely played, so I'm not sure who else to give it to. I'm kind of in a sticky situation because he pretty much started half the games and he's going to get the Sixth Man of the Week award. So I guess that's a poor representation of our bench for the most part, but really, who can I give it to? And the player of the week for me, it's very, very close. Because if you've seen the past 3 games, I believe I've given it to Vucevic or I've given it to DeMar DeRozan in the losses as well. But there's one key difference between Vucevic and DeRozan in this week. And it's the Charlotte Hornets game where DeMar DeRozan simply had a fantastic performance once again. He dropped 45 against Philly as well. And I think out of all of the players, Vucevic was fantastic this week. But if you're looking at the losses and the wins for the Chicago Bulls, if you're looking at the overall performances, every single game, for this week, I think you have to give it to DeMar DeRozan. Again, this is his team, ladies and gentlemen. And he runs the show. And when we win, he's the one that's leading us to the win. And when we're losing, he's the one that's trying to carry us to as close as possible to a win. So there were a few problems with DeMar DeRozan. I think the Phoenix Suns game, there was too much isolation. And that obviously falls to DeRozan and Levine. I think they both have a big factor to play. But when we're playing team ball, he's still contributing in so many ways, facilitating-wise and scoring-wise. And he's had an unbelievable month of February. And this is just another week where he truly deserves that Player of the Week award. Again, I really think Vucevic played fantastic basketball against the Timberwolves. I thought he played great against the OKC Thunder. And I thought he was okay against Philly as well. I thought he was not great against the Phoenix Suns. So I guess all the way through, consistency-wise, it was DeMar DeRozan's week, and he definitely deserves that Player of the Week. Moving into the next 2 games, ladies and gentlemen, we only have 2 games to talk about. The first one is against the San Antonio Spurs, a game where Derek White got traded to the Boston Celtics, and they currently have Richardson in the team. So the Bulls and the Spurs, a different look for the San Antonio Spurs, but the core of their team is pretty much intact, and that core ended up beating the Chicago Bulls in their home turf in San Antonio. This could potentially be a game we don't have Zach LaVine, potentially even Javonte, I don't really know at this point in time. So it's going to be a difficult game for the Chicago Bulls. It's going to be a lot harder than the Spurs that we faced away when we were in San Antonio, but we have the home crowd advantage. I expect us, even without Zach LaVine, to beat the San Antonio Spurs at home. We're on a 3-game win streak. I would like to continue that heading into the All-Star break. And then the last game that we have to talk about is against the new-look Sacramento Kings. We're going to be seeing Domantas Sabonis once again, ladies and gentlemen, but this time in different colors. It's going to be a fun game. I'm really excited to see the Sacramento Kings team in action. Obviously, I've seen the glimpses, and they've had pretty good performances since they've joined together. But obviously, we still should be expected to walk out with the win, in my opinion, against the Sacramento Kings. But again, injuries might play a factor. If we don't have LaVine, it's a big loss. And obviously, they still have a lot of good players on their team in Sacramento at the moment that probably have made them better this season. So it's not going to be the same Sacramento Kings team with Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield and all of those guys. It's a different team completely that we're going to be facing. A team that doesn't necessarily need to shoot a lot of threes and can damage you in the paint. Those might be some of the teams that we can't stop at the end of the day. So it's a tough team that we're going to be playing, but I fully expect that we should have enough still to beat the Sacramento Kings. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hope for a good upcoming week. Please like and subscribe if you're new. If you watch every week, I'll see you next week. But if you don't, I'll see you in another Chicago Bulls video. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care.